China Globbers. The debt that must be paid. The final secret of the Scarlet Manifest was about to be revealed. And the debt was finally due. The storm over the lost city. The forbidden waters of the Pacific, 1930. The sky had turned black. James Alderidge and Mei Ling stood at the entrance of the ancient temple, the glowing names on the walls pulsing like embers. The first China Globbers, their faces hidden beneath masks of bone and gold, had emerged from the darkness, surrounding the altar where the Scarlet Manifest lay. They did not speak. They did not breathe. But they watched. Alderidge could feel it now, the weight of history pressing down upon him, the whispers of the past swirling through the chamber like a storm waiting to break. Mei Ling's hand tightened around the dagger she had concealed in her sleeve. "They've been waiting for us," she whispered. Alderidge's pulse pounded in his ears. "No," he murmured. "They've been waiting for the debt to be paid. The price of the bargain." The China Globbers had never been mere traders. They had made a deal, not with kings or emperors, but with something far older. Something that I did not forget. The Scarlet Manifest had been more than a ledger of goods. It had been a contract, binding those who signed it to an eternal bargain. A bargain that had never been broken. Until now. As Alderidge stepped forward, the ground trembled beneath him. The names on the walls burned brighter, illuminating the chamber in an eerie crimson glow. A low, inhuman voice rumbled through the darkness. "The debt must be paid." The China Globbers raised their black stone blades, their masked faces turning toward Alderidge and Mei Ling. "It was never gold they traded," Mei Ling whispered, realization dawning in her eyes. "It was something else." Alderidge's breath caught. Blood. The price of the Scarlet Manifest had always been blood. And now the debt had come due. The Hollow Circle's last gambit. Aboard the warship Leviathan, South Pacific. Far from the lost city, aboard the Leviathan, the Hollow Circle prepared for their final move. The ship, a floating fortress of steel and secrets, cut through the cursed waters, its crew of mercenaries and scholars bracing for what lay ahead. In the captain's quarters, a hooded figure unrolled an ancient map, tracing a path toward the ruins where Alderidge had vanished. "We have one chance to stop this," the captain growled. A man stepped from the shadows, his coat embroidered with the insignia of the old China Globbers. His eyes glowed faintly in the dim lantern light. "You are too late," he said. "The contract is already being fulfilled." The captain's hand tightened around his pistol. "Then we break the contract," he said. "Or we all drown in history's curse." The Leviathan's engines roared. The final war had begun. The gates of the abyss. The lost city. 1930. The Scarlet Manifest pulsed on the altar, its symbols shifting, its parchment dripping with something that looked like ink, but smelled like blood. Mei Ling gritted her teeth. "We have to destroy it," she said. Alderidge hesitated. The power emanating from the document was overwhelming. It was alive, feeding on the souls that had been bound to its pages. He grabbed Mei Ling's hand. "If we break it, we break their hold on the world," he said. "But if we fail?" The temple shook violently, as if the earth itself was awakening. And then, the walls began to crack open, revealing an endless black abyss beneath the city. A low, monstrous voice rose from the depths. "The contract will not be broken." Mei Ling plunged her dagger into the parchment. A deafening howl filled the air. The China Globbers lunged forward, their golden masks shattering, revealing faces that were no longer human. The debt had been called. The abyss had opened. And history itself was about to swallow the world whole. The final chapter approaches. The war for the Scarlet Manifest was no longer just about secrets or power. It was about survival. The Hollow Circle was closing in. The last true China Globbers had awakened. And the abyss was waiting to claim them all. China Globbers. The abyss calls the debt. The Scarlet Manifest had been pierced. The abyss had opened. And now, the world stood on the brink of something far worse than death. The shattering of the Scarlet Manifest. The Lost City. 1930. The temple trembled as Mei Ling's dagger plunged into the Scarlet Manifest. The parchment shrieked. Not like paper tearing. Not like a book burning. But like a living thing, screaming in agony. The walls split open, spilling tendrils of black mist into the air. The names carved into the stone, the names of the countless merchants, sailors, and emperors who had once bargained with the China Globbers, began to disappear, one by one. And then, the China Globbers themselves began to change. Their golden masks cracked. Their flesh rippled, distorted, twisted into something inhuman. They had been bound by the contract, their souls tethered to the manifest for centuries. Now, with its destruction, they were free. And freedom came at a cost. Alderidge grabbed Mei Ling's arm. Run! The floor collapsed beneath them, revealing the churning abyss below. The scent of salt and rot filled the air as figures began to rise from the darkness. Not just the China Globbers, but those who had signed the Scarlet Manifest across history. Traders, kings, smugglers, pirates. All of them. They were not dead. They had been waiting. The Hollow Circle's assault. The warship Leviathan, off the coast of the Lost City. The Leviathan cut through the storm, its floodlights piercing the darkness. Captain Elias Graves stood at the bow, his hand tightening around his revolver. There it is, one of his men whispered. Through the sheets of rain, the Lost City rose from the waves, its ruins pulsing with an eerie crimson glow. And then, the sea opened beneath them. A monstrous wave of black water surged forward, crashing against the ship's hull. The engines roared, fighting against the pull of the abyss. Graves turned to the crew. Prepare for landing. No one hesitates. We either end this, or we all become history. A figure stepped beside him, hidden beneath a hood. The last China Globber of the living world. It is already too late, the man said. Graves scowled. Then let's make history regret it. The Hollow Circle had come to claim the manifest. They had not expected to face an army of the dead. The reckoning of the Scarlet Bargain. The ruins of the temple. 1930. Alderidge and Mei Ling ran through the collapsing corridors, the howls of the risen Globbers echoing behind them. The storm outside was raging, the wind howling with the voices of the past. The entire city was sinking, the ruins collapsing back into the abyss from which they had been pulled. We have to get out. Mei Ling shouted over the chaos. Alderidge turned, his eyes locking onto the altar, where the last shred of the Scarlet Manifest was still burning, its symbols twisting into nothingness. If they left now, they would never know the final secret. The secret that had kept the China Globbers in the shadows for centuries. The truth of what the bargain had been. Alderidge took a step back toward the altar. James, no! Mei Ling screamed. But it was too late. His hand brushed against the last ember of the manifest. And in an instant, he saw everything. The truth behind the China Globbers. The China Globbers had never been merchants. They had never been traders or explorers or even secret rulers of an empire. They had been collectors. And what they had collected was time. The forgotten bargain. The first China Globbers had discovered the abyss beneath the sea, the place where all lost things go. And from that abyss, they had taken something that should never have been removed. Time itself. They had stolen years, lifespans, entire eras of history, from those who had signed the Scarlet Manifest. Every deal, every contract, every trade had not been for gold or silver. It had been for time. And now, time had come to take it back. The final war begins. Alderidge staggered back, his breath ragged. Mei Ling grabbed his arm, pulling him toward the temple's exit as the entire structure began to collapse into the abyss. From the cliffs above, the Leviathan's floodlights cut through the darkness, illuminating the war unfolding across the ruins. The Hollow Circle had arrived, their forces clashing with the risen China Globbers in a battle that had been centuries in the making. Gunfire erupted. Swords clashed against steel. And overhead, the storm itself seemed alive, the wind screaming with the voices of history. Mei Ling turned to Alderidge. We have to stop this. But Alderidge knew the truth now. There was no stopping it. The China Globbers had stolen time. And now, time was coming to reclaim them all.